Community has almost become a cliche in online marketing, but if you've been overlooking it as a strategy or downplaying its importance, it's really time to reconsider. In addition to the pandemic showing us how much people need human connection, AI generated content is flooding the internet and information is just not enough anymore. So today we are sharing 6 ways to use online communities to grow your business. And some of these require having your own communities. Some you can leverage other people's communities that already exist. Either way, by the end of this, you'll have easily at least one tactic you can literally try today and perhaps increase your revenue by tomorrow. Let's jump into it.
There's no wrong way to be an entrepreneur, and that's the dirty little secret the business gurus don't want you to know. They want you to do things their way, but their way may not be your way. The key to success is finding the strategies that work best for you. Welcome to the 6 Ways with Jerry Potter.
Welcome to episode number 36 of the 6 Ways. My name is Jerry Potter. Yes, it rhymes with the boy wizard. Every week, we bring on a smart, innovative guest that is thriving in their field of expertise to share their best tips with the rest of us so we can all achieve our entrepreneurial goals, because I truly believe we all do better when we all do better. And my guest today is Stacey Simms. Stacey and I actually worked together in radio over a decade ago. I see, for those of you watching on YouTube, we both have on-air signs in our background here. And we were recently talking to the Threads app about community. Now, Stacey's son was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes just before he turned 2. And she's shared her family's experience to grow this worldwide community of other families with children with diabetes. And she's done it using all kinds of strategies, including communities in the traditional sense, as well as a huge podcast, speaking, and more. And I'm so excited that she's here to share those with us today. Stacey, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's so much fun to do this. It's great to see you. And I'm really excited to talk about this. Community is how we got through so much of my son's diagnosis, and it continues to fuel me now 17 years later.
I can't imagine. So when your son was first diagnosed, did you immediately go, oh my gosh, I need people? Or at what point did you transition to, I'm going to create a community for people like me?
Yeah, it's so funny to think back to the before times, right? Before social media and even before the iPhone, because he was diagnosed in 2006.
Okay.
And I wasn't, you're in the hospital, and I certainly wasn't thinking, I need community. I was thinking I need to learn how to do injections, and I need to read everything I can. And how's my kid going to be healthy? And what am I going to feed him? How are we going to do this? But immediately, the first day we were in the hospital, a nurse stopped in. She said, hi, I'm not your nurse, but I have type 1 diabetes. And I come to all the families I can find when they're newly diagnosed just to show you that it's going to be okay. Here I am, all grown up and working, and I'm fine. And your son's going to be fine too. And it was an amazing connection. So that really had an impact on me and made me realize that if I could just find more, and I don't want to say just positive people, because man, this is a tough condition. It's a tough one for the person who has it, certainly more so than anything else. But when you're a caregiver and a family member, it's a rough road, especially when you're learning. And I knew if I found more people who could show me that they did it, I could learn how to do it better and be okay for my son and help my son be okay. So I started gathering local community around me for a while. It wasn't on social media. I had a group of moms that I worked hard to find in the Charlotte, North Carolina area where we are. And we would go out to dinner every couple of months and exchange notes. And then when Facebook was Facebook, when we started posting pictures of our dinners, people started saying, well, I know somebody with type 1 and I want to be part of this group. And I formed a Facebook group. This is before the podcast, before everything else, for Charlotte parents of kids with type 1. And that was the very first community that I helped create. It was already there. It just kind of needed to be gathered.
Wow. Well, yeah. And that's just it. The people are already there. And we'll get into a little bit more of the amazing things that you've done as we go through our 6 ways here in just a second. Sometimes when I'm helping somebody with a social media strategy, we talk about the different types of value you can give on your content. Yeah. Obviously, you can give tips and tricks and teach people things. But one of them that I say that you can give that's really valuable is to let people know they're not alone. And, I usually present it as, here's a not so fun fact. When somebody thinks they're the only one with a problem, they don't seek a solution because they assume one doesn't exist. Like we just kind of think, well, nobody's created a solution for this because it's just me, or it's almost nobody else that has it. And so when you can bring those people together, it's really, really valuable. So, all right, we're going to share 6 ways to use online communities to grow your business. Stacey brought 3. I'll share 3. Also, our question of the week: if we are building our own community, Do you recommend doing it in a Facebook group or on a different platform? I feel like this is the question that will never go away. And I'll tell you, the
Oh,
answer is not perfect for everybody, but we'll share what we believe, and you can make your own best decision. So make sure you stay till the end for that.
I have
All right.
very strong feelings about that. So we'll definitely
Okay.
have to talk about that at the end.
Okay, good. All right. 6 ways to use online communities to grow your business. Number one, Stacey, you're up first. What do you got?
Okay. So I would say podcasting. And when you are podcasting, and I apologize in advance for my number one to be a multi-part already. I don't mean to complicate things, but you can't just do a podcast and say, there's my community. Podcasting, and we know this from our radio days, it's a very ethereal medium. You're listening, but there's nothing to hold on to there, right? There's not other people listening with you. It's audio or video content now. So podcasting is probably this is changing a little bit for my business, and we'll talk about it. But for the last many years, I started my podcast in 2015. It's been the biggest part of my business. So finding ways for my podcast listeners to feel like they're part of a community is complicated, and it can be hard. So I use social media quite a bit. I want my people to have a place to gather. And for me, that's Facebook groups. It is more and more becoming, I think Instagram has become a great place. I think LinkedIn, surprisingly to me, has become a very good place for my listeners to hang out and have conversations. But I think for now, Facebook is still my home base on that. It's just easier. They make it so simple to do polling, to have a Facebook group where everybody's in the same place because of the show.
Yeah.
It's also, this happened to me last week. This is so embarrassing, but I put out a show which was the unedited audio. And a lot of my shows are like this one, where I'm just talking to a guest, and who cares if it's not edited that carefully? It's going to be fine, right? Maybe we took out a few ums or this. This was a just me episode that is pretty scripted. It's a newscast.
Okay.
And I messed up a lot. And I heard from all my people saying, what happened? So we replaced that very quickly. But it's a good example. It had nothing to do with diabetes per se and support, but it was a place where people reached out quickly. And it's a good example to me of my community. They thought it was funny, most of them, but nobody was mad. They were trying to help me out. All the messages were, hey, did you know? Hey,
Yeah.
So that can be very powerful. But I think it's tough. Like I said, podcasting alone is not a community, but you can use it to get people talking, and putting them in that one place is a great way to test things out. One of the things that I love with my show is that I get access to technology companies, to CEOs, to inventors and influencers that otherwise, my listeners wouldn't have one-on-one conversations with. And so I can say to them, hey, this new insulin pump is going to connect to this new technology.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to know if I talk to the company? And these CEOs, frankly, are used to going on like CNBC and talking to their stock prices. They're not really used to answering questions about, well, what about skin adhesions? Or like,
Yeah.
my son is low in the middle of the night and this pump didn't alarm in the way that I'd like it to. How are you going to change that? Or why are you on iPhone and not Android yet? So it's fun to bring those questions directly to the CEOs, and I can do that using those groups.
So if you have a podcast and you don't have a community, what would you say to a podcaster that doesn't have a community? Start a Facebook group for your listeners. Is that the easiest way to get started with that, you feel like?
Yeah, I do think starting a Facebook group is the easiest. I do think that if you're, let's be honest, if you're a little younger, depending on your demographic, none of your people may be on Facebook. Maybe it's Discord. I would ask something like that. I would ask yourself, where are my people? And if you are your own people, which I am, it's a lot easier, right? I feel like I'm an organic part of the diabetes community. So it's pretty easy for me to put myself in my listeners' shoes. If you're not, you've got to ask them, maybe start and then try to find those folks. But if you're already part of the thing you're podcasting about, or you know a lot about it, do some research and find out where those people are, because it may not be Facebook. I think Facebook groups are easy, but sorry for the long answer, but it's complicated, right? Especially much more so than it was as we started back in 2006.
Yes, for sure. For sure. Okay. Next up, number 2, 6 ways to use online communities to grow your business. And I wanted to make sure in this episode, it wasn't just about having your own community, but things you could do today. And mine is participating in other people's communities. And a lot of times people get worried about this. Oh, well, what about the group rules? I don't want to get kicked out. I don't want to get banned. I don't want to spam people. Like, we have all of these beliefs usually about going into other people's groups. And so I want to just give you a quick high level overview of something I teach in my programs called the Peacock Strategy. And it's called the Peacock Strategy because you go in, you spread your feathers, and everyone goes, whoa, look at this awesome person. Whoop, and I almost spilled my drink. Speaking of attracting
Gotta love another
attention.
one who talks with their hands. I'm not alone.
I know, I need to move it further away. You go in, you spread your wings, and everyone goes, oh, look at that person. And at no point is anybody going, get out, spammer, because that's not what we're doing. And so what you do is you go in and you are helpful, but you're helpful in a way that it can bring you new clients and customers. So here's the filter that I use. If I'm going to do something in a Facebook group, obviously I make sure I know what the rules are, but I go, if everyone in this group, let's say there's 10,000 people in the group, if everyone in this group did what I'm about to do, would the group be better or worse? And so if everyone was helpful, everyone shared tips, everyone shared wins, the group would be better, right? So read the rules of the group, befriend the admins if you need to, like literally ask them like, hey, is this okay? Would it be all right? Don't be sneaky about it or you'll appear sneaky. And that's always suspicious. Spend time in the groups ahead of time to learn the culture. It helps if you're already a member of the group. I once spent $2,000 on a program because somebody said, oh, you could get so much business from this Facebook group. Never went through the program, never learned the culture, never got any business from that Facebook group. So that was my lesson learned there. But you can go in and you can either reply to other people. And I always say, be helpful, over deliver to stand out. If you give the best answer, not only will you stand out, but people will reply and like your answer, which means your answer will be the first one shown, sometimes without somebody see comments. And then within that, you kind of seed your authority and your business. Like, oh, my clients ask me about this all the time. And after over 10 years of working with them, here's what I tell them, that kind of thing. Or you can actually go in and post yourself and give value around whatever the people in the group are doing. So for example, one of the things that I do is when I help people with their content strategy around creating a podcast with video, we've been having a lot of conversations lately about where do I film? What goes in the background? Well, I'm in this group right now for this program and everyone's trying to figure out what to put in their background when they record any videos. So I just made this post, hey, 5 things to consider when creating your video background, and got tons of engagement, tons of comments, then tons of new followers over on my Facebook profile where then I talk about the things that I do. So go in, be a peacock, not a bull in a china shop, not a, I'm trying to think of, another, I don't know what a spammer would be, but it doesn't help to go in and link drop. You literally go in and make the group better while also attracting more people.
Don't be a skunk. Don't spray and run. Maybe something like that.
Yes, there we go.
I don't know.
I've never done the animal analogies, but that's perfect. Oh. Yeah. Don't be a skunk. Nobody wants to be a skunk. So,
but I may have to search out your video stuff because, I, as a radio person, I struggle so much. I hate videos so much, and I do it because we all have to do it. So I will definitely
You're a professional TV broadcaster too.
I know. And you know what? That's even worse because I want to have my hair done all the time. I can't, like right now, the first thing I did before we even started was like, I'm so sorry. I just came from the gym. I was walking my dog. I'm not, this is hard for me. So yeah, I definitely need to go look that up. That's really funny.
You might have trauma from your time in TV because okay. I was like, I don't want to offend you by this, but as someone who's married to somebody and worked in media, I know for women especially, it's brutal. So
yeah. Well, that's another topic altogether. I have trauma from radio and television.
Okay. All right. Next up, number 3, 6 ways to use online communities to grow your business. What do you got, Stacey?
Well, it's kind of jumping off on yours, less of peacocking, which I love. I think that's fantastic, but more collaboration. I have done many webinars. I love doing webinars. I love speaking, and I actually was one of the reasons I started my podcast in 2015 was I had been asked to speak to JDRF, which used to stand for Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, but now they're just JDRF, to speak at some of their events. I always like to say that, to speak at some of their events about, how I made connections. People loved to hear the story of how the heck did I meet people locally and form that group. And so when COVID hit, and I couldn't speak anymore. I mean, and I did a lot more. That was the first talk. And then, of course, it grew from there. I do lots of different subjects. But during COVID, I started doing webinars like many, many people did. And I found them to be so much fun But I also found, and I think you probably do as well. There are a lot of people who are good talkers and who give great speeches, but they're just, they're very worried about webinars. It's hard to talk through a screen, so I started getting asked, can you partner with me to maybe bring in your people and also to kind of pep things up? And I thought, oh,
Hmm.
this will be fun. This will be great. And it was. So I've partnered with several different groups. A group that specializes, excuse me, in college students and young adults with type 1. My son is just finished his freshman year of college. So, he is 19. And I talk a lot about how he went from age 2 to 19. But that off to college is an incredible milestone. So I do webinars with them. I've done stuff on Diabetes Camp, and I do webinars with JDRF still. Everything from newly diagnosed patients and newly diagnosed families to my own event now that a lot of people will let me do a webinar with them. I have an event called Mom's Night Out for moms of children with diabetes, and I'm doing one. I'm doing a couple, in the next couple of weeks and months that are an actual topic, and then I can talk about my event. So
Hmm.
it's really fun because I get to partner with all these cool people, and I also get to promote my own events and my own business, but it's also really legitimately helping folks. And then we're finding more nooks and crannies of these communities. So I think,
So, and
okay.
I was going to say, and when you say webinar, it's not just the traditional webinar. It's essentially speaking, getting interviewed, all kinds of things in other people's communities, right?
Oh, that's a great point. Yeah, I don't even know what a webinar really means. I just say that I know, isn't that terrible? To me, my webinars are fun, engaging Zoom presentations.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's
that
the
works.
kind of chat I would do to like 30 parents if we were all sitting in a room, and I ask questions and people can chime in. But sometimes it's formal with slides, you
Yeah.
know. But one of the things that I recommend, and this is, for your listeners too, is when you're doing something like that, you've got to get their email addresses, right? That's why, they're signing up for the webinar. That's why all these organizations really like to do them. So if someone asks you to partner or you reach out and say, let's partner together, I think a reasonable expectation up front is that you're going to share the email addresses, unless they're paying you or there's a different agreement. But quite often, that's that's one of the reasons why I really like doing that, because it
Yeah.
really helps me, find new people.
Yeah. All right. Next up, number 4 of 6 ways online communities can grow your business. And this one is actually a psychological benefit that I think even a lot of people with communities don't even realize that they're getting. But real quick, if you found this valuable so far, will you hit subscribe or follow? Because we love putting this content out. And if you're watching on YouTube, share in the comments. Let us know what's been most helpful so far. I'm sure that Stacey and I would love to hear any takeaways that you have. All right. Number 4. This is kind of the most obvious one, I think, when we think of the title of this episode, 6 Ways to Use Online Communities to Grow Your Business, and that is to build your own community. So that could be in any number of ways, but generally it's going to mean bringing like-minded people together. And in addition to having, a group of people that, like you, love you, are enchanted by you, that you can regularly run things by, sell things to, make offers to, whatever it might be, when you are the person who brings like-minded people together, the affinity for you will grow as well. This happens in like regular everyday life. Like if you're the person who has all the cool friends in all the cool places, they think you're that much cooler. And so when you bring those people together, there's this secondary benefit where it's like, wow, Stacey just brings together the best families, and they're also giving and loving and everything like that. And so it's almost like building a fan club without the weirdness of saying, "Oh, I have a fan club." You don't have to do that. And then, of course, the other thing about building your own online community is in some cases, when they're strong enough, people will gladly pay just to be part of your community.
Yeah, that's really an interesting way to put it, because you're right. We all have those people that we think are so cool. Like they know everybody,
Yeah.
right? They
Connectors.
get that aura of, wow, if I need to reach these people, that's the person to contact. I love that one.
Well, and sometimes people say, "How do you attract these great people?" And I'm like, I don't know. I'm lucky, I
Well,
guess.
you are lucky, but I do think, and not to get off topic here, I think it's difficult sometimes to just realize that all you have to do is ask.
Yes.
It doesn't work all the time, right? But when you're thinking about, will this benefit my audience? Will this benefit the community? If you can steel yourself to say, I am going to ask this person, the worst they can say is no. I am going to try this thing. the worst thing that happened is that I fail. If you can kind of go for it, I think that's the secret of a lot of people that make it look effortless, is that it is not effortless. It took a lot of no's to get to that yes.
Yes. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
to me, that's really the key. I'm sure you have I mean, I don't want to say it like, oh, you failed at a lot of things, Jerry, but I'm sure you've tried a lot of things. You've already said that one guy that took your money, right? You have to try a lot of things to get to the level of success that you have now.
Well, no, he didn't take my money. It wasn't him that told me that I should join. It was somebody else. So just so we're clear, I didn't
Oh,
spend.
okay. Well, the
It
group
wasn't
that
like, yeah, it wasn't like the guy was like, buy my program and you'll get business from my program. It was somebody else
oh
like,
no.
this community is great. And had I learned the culture, maybe that would have happened. But
Oh, I
yeah,
get it.
but
Okay.
I totally love what you're saying. And I think, and the deeper answer was of how do you attract such good people is, I think when you openly talk about who you are and your values and things like that. I mean, I've got this sign on my wall in the office, we all do better when we all do better. And I truly believe that. And I think that attracts a lot of people. And my approach to simplicity and you opening up about your family and the early struggle and you sharing the good days and the bad. I mean, that always attracts the right people as well. So, all right. Next up, number 5, 6 ways to use online communities to grow your business. Stacey, what do you got?
Let's talk about in-person events. I mentioned my mom's night out. I absolutely love in-person events. This goes back to the name of my podcast, which is Diabetes Connections. And it's called that because in 2014 and 2015, I was asked to speak at a few events to say, how did you get people together? So I created a presentation called Diabetes Connections, why we need them, how to make them. And then I thought, I'm going to do a podcast. I don't know what I'm going to call it. For now, I'll call it Diabetes Connections. I don't know what to call it. And of course, that we're there. That's what it
Yeah.
is. But a couple of years ago, I have some books in the diabetes community, and I wanted to do a book launch for the second one in the series that was a fun event for moms. So rather than, I had done a coffee shop launch for the first one, I had done a bookstore launch in another city, but I said, I really have to give these moms something of value because all the diabetes moms in Charlotte, where I live, know me. So they don't want to come just to a bookstore. So I created this big event with, we had cocktails, we had specials, we invited the technology companies to come and talk about insulin pumps and continuous glucose monitors and emergency glucagon and all the stuff that moms really want to know about. And I said, no kids, no husbands, just moms. We never get any time to ourselves. This is for us. It was amazing. It was so much fun. I had 1 or 2 speakers, but I didn't, they were my friends. And then I heard from moms all over the country who said, can you bring that to my city? And I thought, oh my gosh, like, sure, let's try it. So we've had 6 Mom's Night Out events. We're trying to do 4 a year now. We go to different cities, in Chicago and Providence, Rhode Island, and
Wow.
Charlotte twice, and Dallas, Texas. We're going to Denver and Philadelphia, and I can't announce cities past that, but it's been amazing. So this is the true community, right? When people are together, right? Well, I shouldn't call it true community. It's the old-fashioned idea of community when people are all together. Let's put it that way, before social media. And it is
Yeah.
different. There is something about seeing these moms and looking them in the eye, and people are crying and laughing and hugging. And obviously I get very excited about it. But if you can, and this is the hardest thing I've ever done. These events are expensive. They're hard to
Mhm.
get the word out about. People, especially in the beginning, they're like, who? I'm not JDRF. Nobody knows who I am out in Chicago unless they listen to the podcast, but I don't have a reputation of throwing events. So these are hard. I don't want to sugarcoat it, but it's been absolutely amazing.
I don't feel like you've sugarcoated it at all. Literally, when you said in-person events, I tensed up like, oh, it sounds like so stressful. It's so much work. And I think that's because I do want to do an in-person event someday. I have a good friend, Cody, who puts on events for like 12 to 16 people. And it's like a 2.5-day event. And it helps that his wife is a world-class event planner. He's got a little stuff
Oh
out
yeah.
there. But so I watch him and we have conversations and I've been to one of his events and I'm like, I think I could do that. But I'm not there yet. So kudos to you. That's
What's
amazing.
funny that you say that is I wanted 100 people at these events. And so far we've had about 75 at each one. And I
Wow.
have learned
That's
that that's a big event. I didn't
Yes.
think that was a big deal.
Yeah.
I've learned that's a really big event. So I'm like, all right, we're
Yes.
doing
The
great.
internet messed us up. I mean,
Yeah.
literally, like, somebody starts a YouTube channel, they're like, oh, I've only got 50 subscribers. I'm like, 50 people are showing up to watch you talk every week? That's awesome. Like, imagine them jammed into a room in the corner of a library. You'd feel like a
Yeah.
celebrity, right? And then
It's
eventually you have
great.
300. That's a theater. So, Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
So
You're going to get
if
to
you can
100.
do it, oh, thanks. And if you can do these kinds of events, it truly, I used to say the podcast was the most rewarding thing I'd ever done, and it's still up there. But man, I float for days after these events. They're amazing.
Oh, even when I speak at somebody else's event and the conversations we have afterward is, yeah, one of the most rewarding things. And so I'll get there. It's there with my book. Another thing you've done that's on my list for
Oh,
someday.
we'll
So.
talk. So fun.
All right, number 6 of 6 ways to use online communities to grow your business. Um, Create a support community where people can support each other to free up your time. So let me tell you a little bit more about what this means. So sometimes people will launch a program where somebody's learning something or everybody's trying to, go together. So I've done courses, I've done what I call accelerator programs where we'll pick one task and try and do it in 30 days or 45 days. And you can do that and offer private support, or you can build community around it where people can support each other. So one of the things that we're doing right now is we have this 30-day modcast accelerator. So we've taken a new approach to podcasting called modcasting. The short explanation is we build module based podcasts, so we call them modcasts. But we've got 50 people going through this program right now, and if I had to provide all the feedback on every single thing that somebody did, it would take up so much of my time. And I love
Yeah.
doing it. Don't get me wrong. But now people are in there and somebody will, say, hey, could I have some feedback on this? And before I even see it, and I'm on Facebook every day, but before I even see it, there'll be 8 other people that have provided feedback. And it is amazing. And sometimes I got nothing left to say. I'll say, I agree with everything here. This is great. Keep up the good work. And so the reason this can, of course, help grow your business is if you can eliminate some of the stuff you need to do in your business while still fully supporting your people, you free up your time to work with more private clients or work on, growing your business in other ways, going, as you recommended for one of yours, going and speaking in other people's groups, doing webinars and
Yeah.
different things like that. So a community where people support each other can free up a ton of time and make a massive, massive difference. So,
Yeah.
all
I
right.
love that. I love that. Could I add one thing? The best
Of
thing
course,
about
of
that
course.
is, especially in my community, there are many different experiences within diabetes, right? We don't have all the
Mm,
answers. And so somebody else has a completely different lived experience. Like they say, oh, my kid has celiac along with type 1. Well, I can give you resources, but I can't answer that question because my son doesn't have
yes.
that experience,
Yes.
right? Or I've used this insulin pump, and what about this one? So it's amazing when your people start answering the questions for each other, you get better insight as well because you get better personal experience that they can talk about.
All right. Our question of the week here in just a second about if you're building your own community, Facebook group, or a different platform. But real quick, if you are listening or watching, we would love to know what your favorite was. Feel free to message any of us on the social platforms, or specifically if you're on YouTube, take 30 seconds and just let Stacey and I know in the comments which of the 6 maybe stood out to you the most. Our question of the week: if we are building our own community, do you recommend doing it on Facebook in a group or on a different platform? So, Stacey, you shared you have very strong feelings about this. So,
Okay. All
I'll
right.
let you start. What do you want to
Okay.
say?
My answer is if you are not including email as you are building your community, you are missing out. I started my podcast in 2015. I'd been blogging since 2007. Nobody read my blog, so that was not a big thing that I did, but I wish I had started an email list immediately. I didn't start my email list with any effort until 2020. It is now, I think, truly my best resource because if all social media goes away, if Facebook locks me out, if we decide that we don't like a specific platform, I mean, how many platforms have come and gone since
A
2015, right?
platform owned by China is forced to sell by the
Right.
government.
You know what I
Yeah,
loved? I loved Blab. Do you remember Blab? No
barely.
one remembers Blab. This was the greatest thing. Blab was a format that you could have video and it looked like the Brady Bunch squares. And you could add people and take them out. But you could record live and people could join you, or you could just set it up and it was early video and it failed. And I loved it so much, but it disappeared. It's gone now.
Okay.
So things come and go. Your email list is yours and you own it. And not only can you reach your people anytime you want, you can, please come back to me. Please, like you said, give us feedback. We want to hear from you. You can give them surveys. You can also use that as a business tool. And my people know I'm not going to spam them. I'm not going to junk them up, but I am selling. I don't sell the list, but I will provide branded emails for sponsors. And
Hmm.
I'm very clear on what those are. I have a lot of disclosures and disclaimers with my listeners. They're probably sick of hearing it, but this is a healthcare thing too. So I got to be really careful. I don't want to, we're not ripping
Yes.
any of these people off. They have enough trouble paying for medical devices and supplies and everything else. So yeah, I will say this is a sponsored email, but I think this product is great. They're supporting the podcast. Please check them out. And
Yeah.
it's become a big part of my business. It's really cool. So I would say, use Facebook, use social media, but you've got to build that email list just in case.
Yeah. Email is, I think, still underrated. And it's a massive part of my business. So to your question, Facebook group or a different platform. I mean, I can't. I've lost count of the number of massive companies and communities that I've seen try and build a community off of Facebook, and then a year or so later they come back and they're like, all right, they don't sound like this, but I think the subtext is, all right, we're back on Facebook. We were wrong. Sorry, everyone. Um, even communities where people complain about Facebook. I wish I just wouldn't have. I wish I didn't have to be on Facebook. So they move it to a separate platform, and then the people stop showing up. So here's the thing: both of them have their advantages. Facebook keeps people coming back, especially if your audience is already on Facebook. There's way more transparency a lot of times on Facebook because somebody already has a profile with some information about them. You can see how long they've had a profile. Did they make it yesterday? You can see usually a photo of their face or something like that. So that's, as much, flack as Facebook gets. There's a lot of great things about Facebook. Now, off of Facebook, I will say there are some great things. One, more customization. One of the things you can do off Facebook is you can commingle a free community and a paid community. And so we've seen some of these offline communities like Circle and School and Mighty Networks kind of surging. And this has been a really attractive thing. I don't have any free communities right now, other than just the general free community that's around my YouTube channel, but not a community in the sense of, as we're discussing here. And the only thing that's made me think about having one is if I can have people who are currently, paying me in a membership and people that aren't commingling, but then of course the people that are paying have access to other things. If you like a challenge, choose something off Facebook because you will have to work that much harder to make sure, right? To make sure that people are that engaged and have a reason to keep coming back. Because otherwise, they're going to get email, hey, there's a new post in your community. Here's a summary of posts in your community. Hey, you were tagged in this post in your community. And it's just people don't go back. Consumers are not doing it. And so that's the challenge, unless you've built something really, really great. So, all right. I hope that was helpful. If you want to take a deeper dive into anything we talked about today, go to the6ways.com/36. If you want to check out Stacey's podcast, you can go to diabetes-connections.com. We'll also link up to that on our Facebook and Instagram in the notes, wherever you are watching or listening to this. And we love hearing about how people binge the show after discovering us. So if you enjoyed this episode, 2 more listener favorites. 1, 6 ways to keep your clients paying longer. That's episode 17. And 6 ways to grow your audience with a challenge. So challenges are a credible way to do marketing within a community. And you can find links to those as well, wherever you're watching or listening. Remember, we all do better when we all do better. So please keep helping each other out. And Stacey, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you. This was great. Terrific to talk to you.